for more on the potential legal ramifications facing the former president, we're joined by Trent Copeland, civil and criminal trial lawyer. Trent, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi. If we can get into this with you, we know that there are 3 potential federal crimes that the Justice Department is investigating: violations of the Espionage Act, which Joe was just speaking about, obstruction of justice, and also criminal handling of government records. Is this enough to potentially put the former president behind bars?
You know, Natasha, it's hard to say at this point. That may be an unsatisfying answer for most of your viewers at the stage. But what we do know is that the search warrant was predicated on probable cause, that the documents were evidence of a crime, specifically evidence of a violation of the Espionage Act and potentially a violation of the law that relates to obstruction of justice. And remember, and I think as Joe correctly said a moment ago, it does not relate to the Espionage Act, which is the part of the code section that the warrant related to. It does not necessarily mean that you're giving this information, that you're a spy, that you're transmitting this information to foreign adversaries. But what it does mean is that you are using the information, or you gathered, transmitted, or lost the information as it relates to a defense secret or allegations or information that may be defense-oriented as to the defense of the country. So all of those things are really important. All of those things may lead to the president being indicted. But remember, a search warrant doesn't mean an indictment will follow, and an indictment does not necessarily mean that a conviction will follow. So we're a long ways away from that. But I think clearly former President Donald Trump is squarely within the crosshairs. And let's remember, Natasha, it does not matter. This is a strict liability crime for all intents and purposes. And what that means is it doesn't matter that these documents were classified or not classified. And I know those in Trump world, in the Trump orbit, have indicated that, well, he waved a magic wand and he declassified documents that were otherwise classified. It doesn't matter. The question is whether or not these documents were transmitted, gathered, or lost, or potentially so, as they relate to defense secrets. And that is where Donald Trump may have his biggest liability.
Interesting. I mean, realistically, do you see any charges coming from this raid?
Yeah, again, Natasha, it's hard to imagine that Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, would have gone to this effort, knowing what the political blowback was, taking what is a historical step, and that is going in and executing a search warrant on the home of a former president. This is not a former president from 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. This is the former president from less than 2 years ago. And by the way, Natasha, what's important to also note, and I think your inference is this. This was an escalation, because what the government had initially asked was for Trump voluntarily to provide these documents. And then they asked through a subpoena. And even though a voluntary request was made, even though a subpoena was issued, he still refused to fully comply. And it was that escalation that led to the search warrant. And that is an escalation that I don't think will come without there being potential charges against the former president.
I mean, can we talk about the discrepancy that we're hearing about today? The New York Times report that says that a lawyer for Trump said that all of the classified documents they had were given back in June, and yet we know classified documents were found. What is going on there? What is the discrepancy?
Hard to know, Natasha, but you know, in your piece a moment ago with Joe, you had Ms. Bob on, who's a counsel for former President Trump. And she said, look, they complied. They gave away all the documents that they had. They thought they were voluntarily in compliance, and they don't understand what happened. What clearly happened was the government was aware, either by surveillance, either a confidential informant, or some other independent, verifiable information that, by the way, not only did the government have and use for the basis of the search warrant, but they also persuaded a federal judge that they were right and that there was probable cause to search Trump's residence for this. So, you know, someone's not telling the truth here, and there's no question in my mind that whoever that lawyer was, or that group of lawyers who made the representations to the government that they were in full compliance, they too may be in the crosshairs, and I have to believe that those lawyers are probably similarly lawyering up today and tonight.
Well, and Trent, could being convicted of violating any of these bar Mr. Trump from running in 2024?
You bet. They're all felonies, Natasha, and each one of these could certainly bar him from running for federal office of any kind at any point. And I'm not sure that even if he's under investigation, there would be a political headwinds against him in terms of trying to run. But this is Trump world, and we're all just living in it. There's really no telling what he might do. He might, in fact, use the existence of a criminal investigation, if there is one against him. He might use that to gin up support and rally his base. There's really no telling what he might do with this information.
Absolutely. Trent Copeland, we thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.